The workplace should be a safe place, but sometimes it becomes the stage for tragedies that no one could foresee. Mechanical failures, negligence, and even small human errors have already caused shocking accidents, leaving fatal victims, remarkable stories, and that is exactly what you are going to see here today. So already drop your like, click below on the subscribe button, and let's go. When a bridge collapses, the impact goes far beyond the rubble that falls into the water. Lives are put at risk, public resources are wasted, and confidence in the infrastructure is shaken. In the state of Bihar, in India, a recent example of this kind of tragedy shocked the population and raised questions about safety and negligence. The suspension bridge that was being built over the Ganges River in the district of Bhagalpur collapsed for the second time in 14 months. The accident occurred on Sunday and left a guard missing. Another 7 men were on the structure at the time of the fall, but managed to escape in time. The construction, which should have been completed back in 2019, faced successive delays and had already suffered a collapse in April of last year, attributed to strong winds and heavy rains. However, residents report that the structure was already showing problems even before the first collapse. Images from the site show part of the bridge submerged, with only a few pillars and cables still visible above the water. The deputy head of the district administration, Amit Raj, stated that the construction was not being done correctly and that the structure should have been reinforced. The chief minister of Bihar, Nitish Kumar, himself acknowledged the failure and promised strict measures to investigate the case. Accidents like this show that structural failures and disregard for safety can turn major projects into tragedies. When a bridge collapses twice before even being completed, the question that remains is, how many other disasters like this are still waiting to happen? On a chaotic morning in Midtown Manhattan, a 45-story crane caught fire and partially collapsed over one of the busiest streets in the city. The collapse of the structure hurled glass and concrete debris onto 10th Avenue, leaving 12 injured and causing moments of panic. The most impressive part, no one died. After the accident, the authorities raced against time to remove what was left of the crane and ensure the site was safe. The city brought in an even larger crane to remove the damaged structure, while engineers and inspectors assessed the damage. To give an idea of the severity of what happened, officers from the Department of Buildings climbed 165 meters to inspect the point where the crane was anchored. The fire that caused the collapse was investigated, and the main suspicion was a hydraulic fluid leak, although other factors were also analyzed. The crane operator, Chris Van Dyne, had a troubling history. In 2008, his license was suspended for 8 months after a fatal accident. In addition, the company responsible for the operation was no stranger to tragedies. 15 years earlier, it had been involved in 2 fatal collapses in New York City. In the first, in March of 2008, a crane fell on East 51st Street, killing 7 people. 2 months later, another accident on East 91st Street resulted in 2 more deaths. Despite the severity of the situation, the authorities reinforced that the structure of the crane and the buildings hit remained stable. The bigger problem became the public's trust. How did a company with this history still have permission to operate? Why were more rigorous measures not taken earlier? For many New Yorkers, the crane collapse in Midtown was not just an accident, it was a warning so that situations like this do not happen again. What was supposed to be one more imposing skyscraper in New Orleans became a tragic scene. The Hard Rock Hotel, which was still under construction, suffered a partial collapse, leaving dozens injured. 2 giant cranes were left dangerously leaning over the building after the accident, forcing authorities to carry out controlled explosions to prevent an even greater disaster. Although the operation to bring down the cranes was partially successful, one of them remained suspended at the top of the structure, causing tension for days. Later investigations pointed to serious structural errors as the main cause of the tragedy, involving beams that were undersized. A report revealed significant technical failures, but delays in the investigations made legal action against those responsible more difficult. Although no one was held criminally responsible, the case generated demands for more oversight in construction. The Hard Rock Hotel accident was marked as an example of the dangers that exist when negligence and cutting costs are prioritized over the safety of those who work. Traffic on one of the busiest bridges in Busan in South Korea was unexpectedly interrupted when a Russian cargo ship lost control and hit the structure with force. The impact caused a large hole in the lower part of the bridge, and although no one was injured, the incident raised serious questions about navigation safety. Who was responsible for the disaster? The captain of the vessel Sea Grand, a cargo ship of 5,998 tons built in 1986. Tests revealed that he was under the influence of alcohol at the moment of the accident, with a blood alcohol level of 0.086%, far above the legal limit of 0.03% allowed for those commanding vessels. The ship, which belongs to the company Grand Marine of Russian origin, did not stop after the collision and tried to flee the scene, but was quickly intercepted by the South Korean Coast Guard. Now the authorities are investigating whether the captain was really in command of the ship at the time of the accident or whether another crew member took control. In South Korean law, the consumption of alcohol on board is not prohibited as long as the person responsible for navigation is sober. The Sea Grand had docked in Busan one day earlier and was on its way to Vladivostok in Russia, transporting steel coils. The collision forced the partial closure of the Gwangan Bridge, which had to undergo a safety inspection before being reopened to traffic. While the investigations continue, the question that remains is, how was a large-scale ship allowed to depart without its crew being properly monitored? A construction site in progress turned into the scene of a devastating fire in Hayes Valley, San Francisco, forcing the evacuation of residents and destroying part of the structure. The fire, which started in the early morning hours, reached a 4-alarm level, requiring the mobilization of 140 firefighters and more than 40 trucks to contain the flames. The place where the fire started was a building still under construction without a sprinkler system or fire barriers, which made the flames spread quickly. According to the chief of the San Francisco Fire Department, Janine Nicholson, the scenario was a real powder keg. Images captured on Tuesday morning showed the scaffolding collapsing as the fire consumed the structure. The blaze also affected 4 neighboring houses, but fortunately no one was injured. What draws attention in this case is that concerns about fires in the same region had already been raised months earlier. The president of the Hayes Valley Neighborhood Association, Jennifer Laska, even warned authorities about frequent fire outbreaks near homeless encampments, including a burned car and smaller fires in the area. However, it is not clear whether any action was taken before Tuesday's fire. The investigation into the causes of the fire is still ongoing. In the meantime, San Francisco City Hall acknowledged the previous incidents but deemed it premature to blame homeless encampments for the fire, stressing that there is no concrete evidence pointing to that connection at the moment. Regardless of the origin, what is evident is that the lack of preventive measures in construction can turn any fire into an even greater tragedy. What was supposed to be just one more stormy day ended up turning into a true spectacle of the force of nature. A man recorded the exact moment when a wooden house under construction completely collapsed, dragged by strong winds. Just like in the story of the 3 little pigs, the wind blew with such force that the structure did not hold. In a matter of seconds, what used to be a construction site took on the air of a demolition, with planks flying and the house crumbling as if it were made of cardboard. Witnesses were impressed by the speed of the destruction. The site, still in the initial phase of construction, had no reinforced walls or a fixed structure to withstand intense winds. The result? A collapse that looked straight out of a children's tale. The man who recorded the scene could not believe what he saw. The strength of the storm was enough to bring down everything that had been built up to that moment. Fortunately, no one was inside the house at the time of the fall, avoiding the worst. The episode serves as a warning. When nature decides to blow, the house does not always stay standing. An accident involving a forklift in China exposed serious safety failures, resulting in a tragedy. It all started with an operator without proper training who made a series of mistakes. The first was transporting the load in an elevated position, something that compromised the stability of the vehicle. The second mistake was even more critical, allowing people to sit on the rear of the forklift, violating one of the main safety rules, which prohibits the use of human counterweights to balance the load. The result was disastrous. With the weight poorly distributed and the instability of the load, the forklift lost its balance and tipped over, hitting a woman who was nearby. Unfortunately, she did not survive. Accidents of this kind are not rare in China and in other countries where workplace safety does not always receive the necessary attention. Equipment like forklifts requires specific training and strict rules to avoid tragedies like this. This case serves as a warning about the importance of the correct use of heavy equipment and proper training of operators, because when safety is ignored, the consequences can be fatal. An accident in a warehouse left a worker injured after he was hit by a moving forklift. The man was walking through a busy area of the warehouse when, for unknown reasons, he ended up being struck by the vehicle that carried a load on a pallet. Case once again raises the alert about safety risks in the handling of forklifts. These vehicles are essential for moving goods, but they also rank among the leading causes of accidents in the workplace. One careless moment can be fatal. Investigations are still ongoing, but specialists point out that some factors may have contributed to the accident. The lack of training of the operator, the possible absence of adequate signage, and even poorly distributed loads are common problems in places where forklifts operate. Everything seemed like a routine maneuver at the port. The driver calmly parks his truck without imagining what was about to happen. But suddenly, something catches his attention. He jumps from the cab and runs away in desperation. Seconds later, the reason becomes clear. A sequence of giant containers comes loose from a ship and drops directly onto the truck, crushing the place where he had been just moments earlier. The impact was violent. The containers hit the truck squarely, destroying part of the structure and scattering debris through the port. Those who witnessed the scene could not believe the driver's luck, who narrowly avoided being hit by the accident. The images show how in a matter of seconds, a normal situation can turn into a disaster scene. This time, the driver managed to walk away unscathed, but the warning remains. In environments like this, any carelessness can have irreversible consequences. What was supposed to be just another normal day at a construction site in Austin, Texas, turned into a true scene of panic. Workers were underneath a giant crane that was hoisting a heavy concrete wall when a cable suddenly snapped. In a matter of seconds, the disaster unfolded before everyone's eyes. The concrete structure fell violently, knocking down a worker who was on top of it. At the same time, the crane itself lost its balance and came down, forcing the workers to run in desperation to escape the impact. The images captured show the frightening scene. A group of workers realizes the tragedy is forming and runs to save their lives. In the midst of the turmoil, one person was even trapped under the rubble but was rescued shortly afterward. The Austin Fire Department and emergency teams quickly arrived at the site, creating an isolation zone to prevent new risks. Only one worker had to be taken to the hospital without serious injuries. Another man refused transport despite his wounds. What became clear is that the day could have ended much worse if the workers had not reacted quickly. An unbelievable workplace accident changed the life of Lauren Showers, a young laborer who had part of his body amputated in order to survive. But instead of asking about his story of overcoming, many people fixate on a single question: how does he live his intimacy with his wife? It all happened when Lauren was working on the construction of a bridge. In a fraction of a second, he lost his balance and fell from a height of 15 meters. The worst came right after. A forklift fell along with him and crushed him, destroying his pelvis and part of his torso. His forearm was also hit and had to be amputated. The only way to save his life was a drastic procedure, a hemicorporectomy, a surgery where the entire body below the waist is removed. The doctors gave little hope of survival, but Lauren surprised everyone and beat all expectations. Today, alongside his wife Sabia, he shares his routine and recovery on social networks. But amid so many questions about his perseverance, there is always someone wanting to know about his intimate life. Lauren has made it clear that he does not accept this kind of question and that he considers it disrespectful. Despite the difficulties, the couple remains strong, focused on Lauren's health and quality of life. He knows that his condition is rare and that his lifespan may be limited, but he does not let it bring him down. His goal is not to satisfy others' curiosity, but to live each day to the fullest alongside the one he loves. A young student at the port of Shoreham in England was excited for his first day at work, but what seemed like a great achievement turned into a brutal tragedy. Simon Jones, only 24 years old, lost his life in a terrible way 2 hours after starting his shift. The victim had been sent to the site by a recruitment agency to work as a stevedore, helping to unload bags of stones and other materials. But upon arrival, he received no training or safety equipment. His function was to fasten the bags to chains attached to a huge hydraulic grab, which was used to move large amounts of cargo. What no one imagined was that a simple mechanical accident would end so tragically. The crane operator, Jim Harris, ended up triggering the closing mechanism of the grab involuntarily. The steel jaws closed in a matter of seconds, ending Simon's life. The case quickly drew attention to safety failures at the port. During the trial, the prosecutor revealed that the company responsible, Euroman Limited, and its manager, Richard Martel, ignored basic measures that could have prevented the disaster. The machine itself had clear instructions that no one should be under the grab, but the rule was ignored. To make matters worse, there was a safe alternative piece of equipment available on site, but it was not used. Investigations pointed out that the company knew the risks, but chose shortcuts to save time, putting the lives of employees at risk. The result was fatal. The trial proceeded with charges of manslaughter and violation of safety regulations, raising the debate about precarious working conditions at ports and the lack of protection for temporary workers. Simon Jones arrived at the port ready for a normal workday, but his life was taken in seconds by negligence and disregard. Do not forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this.